Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for our Coffee Talk series, where we bring in some of our smartest crew to answer questions for you. I'm the marketing manager at goVirtualOffice, Chrissy Allard, and here with me today, we have two of our most veteran consultants who are going to help us through some of the questions you might want to ask before setting up an ERP or buying an ERP, doing some sort of self-evaluation of your company, and I will let them introduce themselves. Jamie, you want to start?
Sure. Good morning, everybody. My name is Jamie Strek. I'm Director of Client Success and Sales here at goVirtualOffice. I've been with GVO for 7 years. The first 5 years were very much focused on implementations and continuous improvement projects, ranging from all kinds of different companies, whether they're manufacturing, e-commerce, waste management, you kind of name it. I've helped with that regard.
And my name is Andy Zinkel. I'm the Director of Delivery Services at goVirtualOffice. And basically, I've been living in implementation world in all of my time at goVirtualOffice. Also been here going on 7 years. And prior to that, I lived in a world of general management for a mid-size manufacturing company. So have some experience with kind of all areas of business. And have been working then at goVirtualOffice to help get clients onto NetSuite and implement it and operational using that as a new ERP.
All right, well, let's dive in. I know that you guys talk to companies every day, and some of them have an ERP or don't have an ERP. And I guess, what are some of like the pivotal things, the turning points in your business where you should really start assessing your systems and considering an ERP?
So what I've seen, kind of the common triggers are either growth or, acquisition. So really when it comes to growth is a client reaches the point where they've maximized as far as their previous systems can go, and they're looking to GVO to help them support that longer term transformation. So a common use case might be, we have some of our financials living in QuickBooks. Our team has a variety of different Excel spreadsheets that they're using to kind of run the business. And it's no longer really sustainable. Clients are really trying to focus on addressing the talent pool shortage that everyone is facing. And they realize that the inefficiencies that are currently inherent in their system are preventing them from moving forward as well as they would like. The other point is also acquisition. So they've gone through and maybe they're already on NetSuite, or maybe they're on a different ERP platform, and now acquisition has caused two or three or even more entities to come together. And the idea is, let's take advantage of our economies of scale and figure out what are we going to do to bring these companies together and have them operating in a similar fashion. There are times though where they still want to respect these are the brands that were in existence beforehand. The clients, their clients know what those were, and how do we make sure that the value associated with those brands continues on while taking advantage of using NetSuite ERP to help manage that combined effort.
Yeah, no, I agree, Jamie. I think the biggest thing that we've run into, or that I've experienced, is that segregated systems scenario that you kind of alluded to. You've got financials in QuickBooks. Most recent implementation I just completed, it was exactly that. They had their financials in QuickBooks, and for the most part, they were able to manage that, but they had no visibility into their inventory. And so that they were managing their inventory just in spreadsheets, and it's unreliable because it's not in sync with POs getting generated and sales order fulfillments being completed and so on. And so if somebody's not manually keeping that Excel spreadsheet updated, everything's out of sync, and you don't have really a true visibility into what's happening in your business. And that's what I've seen being the biggest benefit of going into an ERP, where everything's all in one place. It's all linked together, and everything is completely in sync. So you have complete visibility over how your business is operating on a day-to-day basis, and you have control over those things. My inventory example, you know exactly when you need to order more merchandise, when you're running low, where it's physically at in the warehouse, or maybe you're tracking it through a bin, or different warehouse locations, etc. And with disparate systems, you just don't have that visibility.
Correct. And that's usually where those initial conversations, we're really reaching out and trying to understand with clients, where are you at now? Where do you want to go in the next 6 months, 2 years, 3 years? And we're, as a company, we're very much focused on buying what you need when you need it. Because there are times where clients will look at the opportunity to move into an ERP and there's excitement about that potential. And the biggest thing is we want to make sure that we're setting up a plan that makes sense from an ERP system standpoint, but then also from a change management standpoint. There are a lot of times where I'll try to have clients focus on, okay, I get and I understand where your goals are at 2 to 3 years down the road, but making sure we have a good conversation in terms of how much process improvement do you want to do during your implementation versus let's move you into an ERP and define what those different stages are. So then that way you're able to move in successfully to an ERP and then grow within it, making sure that we don't bite off more than we need to on that first initial phase.
Yeah, and you can even see as you do that, as you get in on that foundation phase, now that you start to have some of that visibility into your business operations, now you can really make wise decisions on what should be those priorities for those fast followers, those enhancements down the road, because it may not be what you thought it was going to be at the very beginning until you actually get in and start using the system and start seeing how the data is presented.
Exactly. And that's the part where we always try to make sure that we're an advocate for our client in that regard, because in most cases, when you do have those disparate systems, your visibility to exactly how your business is behaving can be limited. So we try to say, move into NetSuite, realize the ROI of the investment that you've made, both in the software and in the implementation. And then once you understand what that looks like, then bringing to bear all those conversations that we've had leading up to that point. So for example, if Andy and I are going through our alignment with a client, there are numerous things that pop up, like it would be nice if X. And that's where we're capturing all of that. And we make sure that it's a talking point to follow up on. But once you have those data points in front of you as a leader, then you're able to make a more informed decision about what, like Andy just said, your true priorities are at that point. Because with as dynamic as the world is, what is a priority now, 3 months from now after you're live, it changes.
And you don't know and I'll say NetSuite because that's the ERP that we work with the most, but you don't know how NetSuite works yet. You know how your legacy system works, but it doesn't necessarily mean NetSuite's going to work that same way or needs to work that exact same way. You don't want to put an automation in place that once you get into NetSuite, you realize, oh, that wasn't really necessary because NetSuite already kind of does this pretty well. So crawl, walk, run, take your time and only do what really is necessary out of the gate.
Correct.
Yeah, and I think our step approach as we do that, bringing on the financials first and all of those things and making sure that you're not taking too much on for your team as it is, it's a big adjustment, but it's worth it in the end. Once you get to see all those data points and like the key performance indicators that you're tracking, some of those might even change. And you guys touched on supply and demand a little bit. Can you maybe talk about how pivotal that is for a business right now when you're dealing with, inflation and dealing with multiple suppliers and how to really hone in on some of those things that maybe you couldn't see prior when you had disparate systems? I think some of those success stories that our customers have had really prove the ROI of an ERP. And, after you've been on the system for 2 years and you have that historical data and all of that, it really, it can move mountains for your business.
Correct. And that's where I think a lot of our clients in the last year or two, a common theme that we'll see is they may have multiple e-commerce platforms where they are accepting orders into their supply chain. So for example, they may have a presence on Amazon. They may have a Shopify website. They may have a different big commerce website where they're taking B2B orders. And the idea is using a middleware, we'll be able to integrate, bring those orders into NetSuite. And then once those orders are in NetSuite, it really will help empower your purchasing and or manufacturing team to understand, okay, truly, when are the dates? When are they coming in? Are you using any contract manufacturers to manage those POs? And by having all of those different order taking methods flow into a central ERP system, once they're there, you can make better decisions and you can not hold your vendors accountable, but you'll have more of an understanding in terms of this is the plan to execute on all those individual points. And the power of that then is right where you're talking about, Chrissy, having the visibility to, okay, this is what historically we had quoted out in terms of a cost. Well, now vendors have provided an updated cost. You'll be able to see truly what your COGS are, which can then turn around and inform your marketing team and or your sales team. Okay, these are better offerings that we should pursue versus what we historically thought was, kind of that finger in the air estimate. And like, this is our best business class or division. And now with more data, you can make a better decision in terms of where you should be putting your efforts.
Yeah, and along with that, you mentioned e-commerce, Jamie, and that's a really good call out. If you have multiple places that you're doing business, you can have that central source of truth also speaking out to each of those marketplaces. Let Amazon know what your true inventory is, and Shopify and BigCommerce, or whatever other channels you might be using. And they all know in virtual real time now what your inventory levels are. So if you're starting to get low because big orders just came in on Shopify, now Amazon can also know in a, maybe not exact to the minute, but within a reasonable amount of time, Amazon is updated with, oh, now we're out of stock on that item. We shouldn't be selling it, right? So there's a lot of value there with that. And with supply chain issues too, looking more at the back end of things, having that visibility in your ERP as far as what your inventory levels are, being able to track things like lead times and when you need to reorder certain items, and having that ERP be able to calculate all of that. If you're an inventory-based business, there's a lot of power there, particularly now with the supply chain issues that we're seeing in the global marketplace.
Correct. Whether it's looking at, hey, I was short shipped on this PO, what is the ripple effect on that? Or maybe somebody at one of my 3PL warehouses, speared a pallet of my product and I can no longer sell it. What does that inventory adjustment, what does that impact look like then on other orders that are out there and that you're trying to meet for your clients?
Right.
I think another thing to touch on that's kind of timely is, everybody's hiring right now. The workforce is in extreme demand. So can you talk about maybe some of the manual processes you're able to replace with NetSuite that maybe would have errors, or that you just don't have a body in that position, and how an ERP can really help you solve some of those issues?
Yeah, and that's really where the disparate systems are a potential driver for your ROI for doing projects like implementing an ERP or adding in an integration. There are times where in the past people are very comfortable. I'm just going to go out and hire another admin to manage this inefficiency. Well, depending on your cost and where you're at in the country, I mean, fully loaded employees, I mean, you're six figures. Whereas if you make an investment in an ERP, some of those manual processes that somebody used to have to do, for example, reconciling your settlement report from Amazon, well, that can now be automated. So you get all that time back. And as a company, you can decide where is that time best spent. Is it spent reconciling a report, or is it better spent trying to make sure that your clients are happy? And so then having that focus on taking those as many of those admin tasks out of the process is valuable for you, because then you don't necessarily have to hire more staff to do the same amount or more volume.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's that, and it's visibility is a big key. Everybody can see the status of a sales order or of a manufacturing work order, where are things at in the process. We've talked about inventory levels. Where are we at? What do we have available that we can sell? And then beyond that, I think it's communication. You don't have to, because you have visibility into the environment, you don't have to run down the hall and ask Susie where something is at. You can just log in and look yourself. And there's potential for automated emails to go out, whether it's emails internally for a report, or an alert for somebody that they need to take action or approve a transaction, or maybe it's automation for an email to get sent out to a customer for a new invoice, or for a PO to get automatically sent to a vendor. A lot of those small little things can add up over time.
Correct. And another good point that you made, Andy, is the fact that, a lot of people, as they're addressing the talent pool shortage, you're having to look beyond just your normal geography to meet some of your needs. And with it being a cloud-based platform, that really opens up your options in terms of where somebody needs to be. Not every role is going to be able to be remote, but if you are a company where you've established yourself that I can do this virtually, well, it's as easy as, now that the process is up in a cloud-based platform, you add a user, you give them login access, go through their training, and moving on.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Jamie.
Yeah, and I think you both touched on this, like empowering your employees to have that information, that real-time data really helps them do their job better, and also feels like, they're not constantly having to be micromanaged, and they're also able to manage their relationships, their external relationships with suppliers, customers, everybody holistically is getting a view that just helps them do their job better.
Correct. And depending on the level of automation that you want to embrace, the goal is then, again, back to your admin thing, taking out those unnecessary touches, where instead of focusing on all your transactions, you're really just dealing with the exceptions. So something that is non-typical, you are able to focus your attention there. And if an order is, everything is meeting your expectations, it flows through the supply chain and there's minimal touch points. So again, it allows you to focus on the exceptions versus this is just a standard order and I don't really need to do anything with this.
Yeah, and many ERPs come with dashboards with things like reminders and quick views of things, so you don't have to go to multiple different places. Even within, if you were using QuickBooks, you wouldn't have to go to multiple different reports. You might be able to have all of those, or a snapshot at least of those, all in one place on a single dashboard, that they're right there at your fingertips and you don't have to drill in. You maybe just hit a refresh to get the updated data, and it's all right there. And in a lot of cases, they can be customized based on the role in the company. Maybe a CEO or a CFO wants to see certain financial data, but somebody in operations needs to see, what is my to-do list, so to speak, of what orders do I need to deal with, what things might need to be approved, et cetera.
Yeah, that's a good point, Andy, because then that's another common thing. In this day and age, there's so many people that are, wearing many different hats. And there is a point where you almost can be overwhelmed by, what do I need to focus on today? And by having that dashboard and narrowing it down, you're helping your employees and their satisfaction by saying, okay, this is what's truly important and this is what I need to work on today, versus kind of just being spread out and you kind of lose that focus and ability to execute.
Right.
So I think you guys have touched on some of the points of my next question, but can you discuss, when is the right time? I know that we talked about there's, if you're getting acquired or if you're looking to get acquired, it can be a really good thing. But there's also that idea of we're too small. But how important is it to set up your company on this foundation to scale to grow when you can't add heads, but maybe you do see a big opportunity for growth, but you just can't expand your team internally?
Yeah, well, and that's a good point because, again, back to earlier comment, buy what you need when you need it. So again, you may have this vision of where my company is going to be in 3 years, and you don't have to do all of that in that first 6 months. So what's your minimum viable product? And let's chip away at things that are, what's your biggest pain point now? Let's address it. Let's get that squared away and move on from there. NetSuite has the flexibility to cater to clients that are, maybe they only have 6 to 10 employees. That's fine. Let's get that baseline together now. Let's make sure we plan for the future so we don't paint ourselves in a corner. But then as you do grow, you can add in a module here or a third-party integration here. Again, it's what matters most in the near term with having that long-term vision accounted for. So there's a lot of flexibility with it to increase as you increase as an organization.
Yeah, and in terms of timing, I think in my mind, the ideal time is as you're heading into growth, right? You're starting to see some things coming your way. Hit it as you're going into the growth, because you can set that foundation, right? And not have to scramble. once you're really in hyper growth mode, now everybody's busy, and now you have this additional project of managing this implementation, and that makes it even more difficult to execute. And then as you get into, you've made the decision to, I want to do this ERP thing, I want to move forward and implement. Think about even the timing within the year that makes most sense to you. Many businesses are very seasonal, and you want to take on the bulk of that effort in that slower time of the year if you can, so that you're able to get comfortable. There's a lot of change management that goes into an ERP. You want to get everybody that's going to be using the system comfortable before you head into that busier season. And you don't want to be doing it, if you're a retail business and Black Friday is a big thing, you don't want to be implementing an ERP on December 1. That is just disaster, right? So do it in June or July when maybe things are a little bit slower.
Correct. Again, it just allowing your team to focus on what's necessary when it's necessary, and allowing them to adjust their kind of muscle memory in advance of that. So then that way, okay, I'd always done this job this way for the last 3 years. Well, now it's slightly different. It's more efficient, but it's still different. And so Andy's comment with change management, you have to give yourself a little bit of time to walk your team through that, because invariably you're going to have an organization where some people are going to be resistant to change. It's human nature. So making sure you're planning for those individuals to come on this journey with you.
Yeah, and understand, you're going to gain some efficiencies with an ERP, but as part of that change management, you're probably going to feel like you take a step or two backwards in the short term, right when you go live with the ERP, because everybody's learning their new ways of doing things. It's going to feel slower at first, but a month or two into it, now you're really going to start to see those efficiencies, and those light bulbs are going to go off of, oh, I don't really need to do this anymore because the system's doing it for me automatically. So,
Right.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the benefits of like NetSuite being built off of the best practices for your industry. So you don't have to worry about a lot of those processes. Can you guys speak to how important it is to, I know we've all been there where we buy something off the shelf and we just try to implement it ourselves, and how important that relationship with who you actually buy your ERP from, and just discuss like the 100-day journey type of thing.
Yeah. So again, when you're seeking out a partner, making sure that it's somebody that you can trust. There are many people that are out in the world where they're looking for your sale, and they want to make sure that they get their sale, they get their recurring revenue, and they move on. Making sure that you're talking with somebody that has that long-term relationship in mind, because at the end of the day, success is not just, hey, I bought it and it's kind of working. It's, no, I bought it, it's making what I need to do work. And you should really make sure that you spend the time understanding how you're getting there. In our environment, Andy and I are talking with multiple clients, and we're dealing with this sort of issue every day. Most companies aren't going to do an ERP implementation as frequently as we do. And so take the time, ask whatever clarifying questions you need to make sure that you have that level of comfort that, okay, the person I'm talking to has heard me and they've given me a plan that really meets that needs, versus they've given me a statement of work that makes sure that they get the sale, but then the risk has now been passed along to me as an end consumer.
That, Jamie, your concept of relationship is a really, really good point. Going to an ERP is so much different than going and buying QuickBooks at Best Buy and installing it on your computer and just start doing it. That's relatively simple. In ERP, there's so much more to it. There's so many different pieces to it, and it's a living, breathing thing, right? We work with NetSuite, and it is absolutely a living, breathing thing. It has a life, right? It evolves over time. There's improvements to the software that come out on a regular basis, and your business changes, and so you need to have that relationship with a partner that you feel comfortable with, that can get engrossed in your business and understand who you are as a business, how you need to operate, what's important to you, and how they can help that ERP grow with you over the next 3 to 5 years. It's not a transactional thing. It's very much a relational thing to select an appropriate partner.
Correct. Because you can't think of it as like I'm going on my iPhone, I'm buying a widget, my widget's now there and I'm done. I mean, you have to look at order of magnitude. That widget, you're just having convenience on your phone. And ERP this is now how you're operating your company. And you really do have to respect that fact.
Yeah, it's much like if you're again a manufacturing or warehouse type of company and you need to purchase a new machine to do this
Correct.
new product line that you're developing, you're going to put a lot of time and effort, and you're going to select the appropriate machine to do that work for you. And ERP is equivalent to that in my mind.
No, it is, and it's just the same thing. It's just a respect there. So you're going to go out and buy a press for a couple $100,000. You're going to go out and you're going to hire the contractors and make sure the footings are there. You're going to have the electrical coming in, and if you see somebody come in the door and they're driving a beat up truck and they don't seem like they have all the tools to get there, are you really going to feel good about the purchase you made in your press? Or you're going to look at the person that's installing. You're like, oh man, this is not a good choice.
That's a great analogy. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think one of the benefits of, working with GVO is how deep our bench is. Like we have subject matter experts for supply and demand. I mean, we have people that have been in the C-suite seats that are able to, extend as their help as, a division of your business. If you work with GVO, you end up having, a multifaceted approach to where you don't have to have all those people in on your team with all that extra overhead. Can you guys talk about our programs around that whole after the handshake, after the implementation, what happens then?
That's a good point, Chrissy, because I always tell prospects or clients as we're working through them is that NetSuite's a vast product. I mean, there are thousands of employees all over the world working on their product. And as a team, we try to make sure that we bring the best resources to bear on a specific topic. And that's just acknowledgement that you can't know everything about an ERP platform. So the more people that you have that have expertise in a given area, the better off that you will be getting a sound product. I always tell people to approach with caution. If you're speaking with somebody who claims that they know absolutely everything soup to nuts about NetSuite, you should just hard stop, walk away. One individual will not know it all. I just guarantee it. So be mindful of that. So with that said, I mean, our kind of cadence is speaking with me, walking through where you're at now versus where you want to go. We get into the implementation, or Andy and his team come help make sure that you're stood up. That first phase is completed based on what we agreed upon. And then as we're going through, I mentioned, we're capturing all those nice to have things that we want to grow into. That's where Andy then hands it off to our managed application consulting team, Boost, and Todd and everybody on his team brings different resources to bear. So there are people that are very astute with e-commerce. There's other people that are more data analytics driven. There's some people that are more financials focused. And the idea is, again, specific to what your needs are at a given time, that team will help support those individual efforts. And again, to a point that you said, Chrissy, those are people that have lived in that space for a while. I mean, our MO as it relates to onboarding folks is we'd rather have somebody that has industry experience and we'll show them how to use the software, because it's, in my opinion, I don't know if everybody shares it, but it's more important to have lived the life and be able to relate to some of those day-to-day issues that you have, and then translate that into your ERP. Then you get somebody that all they've ever done is ERP and they might not be able to understand what it means to, hey, I just had 2 or 3 people calling sick today. Now I'm shorthanded. How do I manage around this? There has to be that level of empathy and understanding.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, we try to balance our teams with a vast array of experience. As we're doing an implementation, we'll have, a lead on that project that has that business experience that Jamie, you kind of alluded to. They've lived in that world. Maybe they've been a controller or a CFO or an operations manager or something like that at a business for a reasonable amount of time, and we'll pair them up with somebody that has maybe a little bit more technical expertise in the software, And then we'll also add into that team a data consultant that really understands data structures and how data comes out of ERPs and QuickBooks softwares and things like that, and can get that data converted into your ERP. We'll add in integration specialists that understand how an ERP will communicate with Shopify, BigCommerce, Amazon, maybe a 3PL warehouse. And then we'll also bring in developers as needed. If we talked about automations and some of those bells and whistles that need to happen based on uniquenesses of your business. So we always try to bring in people to do what they do well, right? If they have that business experience, they manage that relationship with you as the client to be able to speak that same language and really come right alongside with you and be a partner with you, and then pull in those technical expertises as needed based on what the magnitude of your project is.
Mhm.
Well, I think we really touched on a lot of things today, the importance of having one unified system versus your cobbled together. Each department has their own software they like, and then you try to fit all the reports together and it's not timely. The data isn't real time. And also some of the efficiencies that come along with having an ERP and the visibility that you gain and just all those business decisions that are easier to make rather than just that gut decision that you're trying to hope, fingers crossed, is the right one. So again, thanks for joining us today, and we'll be doing these again. So if you guys want to send us any questions you might have, we can definitely answer those. You can reach us on our website or any of our social platforms and follow us along on social, and we'll keep you updated on any new learning opportunities with GVO. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.